Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. I did a story yesterday about clueless Keith Brown and his insistence that the next election could be a de facto referendum on independence. I showed how it was really a non-starter. Well, Humza Yousless, never one to give up a really bad idea, has stayed on the fence about this. He is refusing to rule out that the next election will be a de facto referendum, even though it can't actually be that. Nobody will recognise it. It doesn't matter what the result is. It will not be treated as a referendum. It breaks international law and nobody will pay the slightest bit of attention. And that's assuming that they can even get an absolute majority, which of course they can't. So we'll have a look at this and see why Humza Yousless is still peddling this same sad, failed idea. And I tell you how bad it is. Even his boss, Nicola Sturgeon, she dismissed it. She realised it was toxic and it was a trap. But this is Humza Yousless, so you don't expect much, do you? Here we go. So, Humza Yousless refuses to take ludicrous de facto indie-ref plans off the table. This has been mentioned a few times that they seem to think, somehow, weirdly, that if they keep saying this, it will become true. It will never become true. You need a referendum. You can't call something else a referendum if it's not legally a referendum. And even if in the tiny, tiny chance that you do get 50% of the votes plus one, you still won't be given the independence of Scotland because nobody will recognise it for anything other than what it is, a gimmick. The SNP leader was under pressure to rule out using 2024 election as a de facto vote on Scottish independence, but he has refused to do so. He wants to treat this election as a referendum, like a reflection. That's what it will be. It will be a reflection. Well, he needs to look in a mirror and see what an idiot he is. That's the only reflection he needs to be concerned about. First Minister Humza Yousless has refused calls to take the SNP's plans to use elections as a de facto referendum off the table. And the point is, it's utterly pointless because, like I say, nobody will allow it. And also, it's very, very, very unlikely that they will get anything close to a majority. And this is why, I've said this before, but this is why Sturgeon abandoned it, because she knew if she treated it as a referendum and then failed to get what she wanted, it would be seen, it would be handing the enemy, as she would see it, the biggest weapon of all. They'd say, well, you know, you treated this as a referendum and you lost, and therefore independence is completely off the table. She knew that. For all her other faults, she was wise enough to see that this was an absolute bear trap, and she refused to put her foot in it. But of course he isn't wise enough for that. He doesn't see that because it does require a little bit of nous, and he has got zero nous. He is nouseless. He is a moron. Anyway, opponents said he should rule out the move after two senior SNP figures indicated that the party is still considering attempts to use the discredited tactic in the next general election, and yet nobody knows why. Both the Deputy Leader Keith Brown and Mr Yousless' controversial Independence Minister Jamie Hebburn refused to rule out the proposals in recent days because you've got an idiot who surrounded himself by other, less talented idiots. You wonder where do you find these people? There's a small factory outside Dundee, producing idiots, Speaking in response, Pamela Nash, Chief Executive of the Pro-UK campaign, said, as SNP leader and First Minister, Humza Yousless must take these plans off the table at once and for all. Even ardent independent supporters recognise trying to use an election as a de facto referendum is ludicrous. It is hugely unpopular with the public and has absolutely no reasonable basis for going ahead. Of course it hasn't. It's not legal, and that's the first thing that should do it. And secondly, you risk showing yourself up as being a failure, because if you don't win it, you've automatically lost it, and then you're attached to that loss for the rest of your political career. That's why Sturgeon abandoned the idea. And does he not learn? Do these people are they not capable of seeing what happens before and thinking, now I see, that's the reason I don't do it? I think plainly the answer is no, because they are completely moronic. What do you do? Anyway, despite weeks of party crisis, coupled with the fact that public services are on their knees, the SNP still seems determined to press ahead with this farcical proposal. He's been in charge, 8 weeks now? In 8 weeks, it's been a whole series of car crashes. There hasn't been a single thing that he's got right. Everything he's done has been wrong. Every person he's picked has been the wrong person. He's surrounded himself with a cabinet of morons. Every time they open their mouths, they show themselves up. You've got the latest Slater debacle. I mean, it's almost every day with the Greens, one way or another. I've got another story about the Greens and Ross Greer. I mean, it is an absolute treasure trove for people who want to rip the SNP a new corn shoot, because every day they provide so much ammunition. It's unbelievable. Anyway, voters won't tolerate it because they want a government which is focused on things that really matter. It's time for people's priorities, not the SNP's. That's the trouble. The SNP focus everything through independence, and they can't get on and do the job they're supposedly elected for. And it's the job they're paid for, but they're not doing it. However, speaking to STV News, Mr. Youssef insisted it's not off the table because I'm an idiot, and added, what we said really clearly is that we'll explore all options that are within a legal framework. Ta-da! That's your line. It's not legal. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is not a referendum. It's an election. You complete buffoon. He did rule out a wildcat referendum, but insisted using the general election as a de facto referendum is certainly one of those options. And the furore began with Mr. Hebburn, who is struggling to justify his near $100,000 a year salary and announced plans for an independence convention this summer. And nobody, again, knows why. The current prevailing theory on this independence convention, is that it was put in deliberately to diary clash with an all-under-one banner meeting so that Humza Yousless did not have to appear at that. He has a history of creating diary clashes, as we know, because he knew he didn't want to align himself with some of the more extreme elements. I'm not saying that everyone who goes onto the all-under-one banner is extreme, but there are certain elements in there that he would consider extreme. So, he's got enough wisdom, I think, to stay away from that, but not got enough wisdom to distance the SNP from it because he's sending someone else. What a moron. Anyway, one of the options on the table would be the de facto referendum plan, first proposed by Nicola Sturgeon and then abandoned when she realised the consequences of it, in which a majority vote for pro-Skexit parties would be taken as a vote for breaking up the UK. No, it won't. Only in their mind, not in law, and certainly not at Westminster. And ultimately that is where the power for this lies. Asked about the plans during a car crash interview on Good Morning Scotland on Monday, clueless Keith Brown doubled down on his colleague's position. Yeah, he can't say anything else because he hasn't got the willpower, hasn't got the mental ability to come up with a fresh idea of his own. So they keep regurgitating the same failed policies time and time again. But this man must know, that it's a non-starter. Why is he, the leader of the party, now going along with this madness? Unbelievable, isn't it? Scotland, you deserve better. You deserve someone with an IQ higher than my dog. And I shall round off there and come up. Now, we know they're not the brightest buttons in the box, but every time they suggest this, people keep telling them why it's a terrible idea. And rather than nodding sagely, agreeing and then abandoning the project, they keep pushing it again and again and again. Is it really all they have? They're paying this man $100,000 a year, the Skexit minister, $100,000 a year out of public money to come up with failed ideas. I think that $100,000 a year would be better off being spent in a hospital. It's just ridiculous. If he's your ideas man, you need to get a man with better ideas. I'll just put it that way. What's your idea today? Oh, well, I've got this failed plan that has been rejected 4 times. Yes. Well, we're going to go a 5th time, and this time it'll work, I promise. I mean, that's basically where they're at, these people. Absolute morons. And wasting money left, right and centre on this thing. And they know full well it's bollocks. But they're still going to push it. Because, honestly, IQ of a mushroom. Anyway, I'll round off there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you've seen here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And please do. We're getting very, very close to a nice round figure. It would be super to hit it. Leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, but definitely leave the like as well. That's the one that really helps with the algorithm. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't regurgitate failed ideas, they don't do you any good, and goodbye.